So, hello and welcome to another episode of The Way to Bee. I'm Frederick Dunn, and today I want you to meet my guest, Matteo Kaiser. Matteo is a beekeeper and an innovator who has developed a website where honeybee swarms can be reported and where beekeepers can register to collect them. Ever head out to collect a swarm of honeybees only to have another beekeeper get there just ahead of you? This website, beeswarmed.org, speeds the entire process up and helps eliminate the confusion that swarm reporters often face. Here's Matteo. So hello everyone, thank you for joining us. If you want to find some links about what we're discussing today, please look down in the video description and we will connect you right away to a site that's going to help you deal with a swarm if that's what you're looking to deal with right now. And my guest today is Matteo, and I want to ask you first, welcome you for this interview, and I want to ask where you're located and tell us about your brand new website and why you built it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Fred. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a beekeeper from Northern California, and I built a service for beekeepers to report swarms, or for the public to report swarms and get a beekeeper as quickly as possible to come pick that up, since the name of the game is speed, and so many people in the public have no idea what to do when they see a bee swarm, right? That's a sort of unexpected surprise for so many people. And so I wanted to create something that works really well and makes that process really fast.
Okay, so thanks. So someone just joined this discussion, but they don't want to hear a whole discussion. They want to know where to go to report their swarm right now. Where do they go?
Yeah, so the website is beeswarmed.org, or you can type in beeswarmed.com. Comes up either way. The service is called Swarmed, and you just fill out a quick form. It's like a Google form, answer the couple of questions, and then you'll get a text from a beekeeper. And usually within 15 to 30 minutes, so it works quite quickly.
And what part of the country does this cover?
Yeah, so the service is built to work anywhere. So there's about 1,000 beekeepers signed up right now all across the US. And so I'm very happy that when a swarm is reported, most of the time the system is able to find a couple of beekeepers right away and get them connected.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's important too. So if you're logging in as a beekeeper, we're going to tell you what kind of information you need to provide. And we're also going to show you step by step how you would register as a person responding to a swarm call. Um, Part of this I want to know about is there any cost going to be associated with this for either the keeper or the person reporting a swarm?
Yeah, so I wanted to build something that works really well and works for everyone. And so the service is free. I built it in a way that the costs are under control, and so that this can stay a free service. And so this is entirely free for people to use. Of course, if you're reporting a removal, you may find that the beekeeper quotes you a price for their special skills and for their insurance, right? The beekeeper who has insurance. Um, so if you have bees inside your house or in a wall, you may find that the beekeeper quotes you a price, but that's between you and the beekeeper. I'm not involved there, right? The service is
Yeah.
really just about connecting you to a beekeeper nearby who can come by as quickly as possible and help you out with the bees.
Hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because those who are new to beekeeping are often told just get your bees for free, go get a swarm. And I often tell people register with emergency responders, fire department, police department, and of
Yeah.
course your local bee association and get the information out on social media. I
Mhm.
think that this is going to be a much more streamlined method. And so at the end of our discussion today, I'm going to ask viewers and listeners, because this is also a podcast, to go to the website and register so we can build those numbers, because that's
Yeah.
actually a pretty small number considering the size of the country. And we do need a clean method for responding to calls for swarms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the problems that come up, of course, you see it on Facebook or whatever your social media. Are you on Facebook?
Mhm.
Okay, because I didn't think people your age even cared anymore about Facebook. Because as soon as somebody reports that there's a swarm, somebody goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go get that," and they're driving 15 minutes into a 30-minute drive to go and collect the swarm, and then they say, "Ah, somebody else just showed up." So how does this service change that part of the response problem?
Yeah, so the way the service is set up, and I put a lot of thought into this based on my own experience catching swarms and doing exactly what you mentioned, right? I spend my spring refreshing my Nextdoor forum, my Facebook feed, looking for people who are posting panicked about a bee swarm, saying, what do I do? Who do I call? And then usually there, I hope that I can text them or respond to their message fast enough that the bees are still there. Um, and that I'm the first beekeeper on site or that the bees haven't left yet. And so the way the system works is when a swarm is reported, the system looks for nearby beekeepers and sends the nearest beekeepers a text message or an email, depending on what they choose. And then they can click on the link in that text message, for example, and that'll take them to their dashboard where they'll see a photo of the swarm, the sort of basic details, how high up is it, how large is it, things like that, the kind of information that you'd want to know before making a drive over to somewhere. And if you want to claim the swarm, you just click the claim swarm button, and then you see the contact information and the address for the swarm. So you don't see the exact address until you claim it, and that way only one beekeeper shows up, right? So the person who reports a swarm isn't getting bombarded with texts, right? I think a lot of times people will post their phone number in a Facebook group and be overwhelmed by the texts and phone calls they get from beekeepers.
Mhm.
And so the idea is that person's phone number is only getting shared with one beekeeper who is kind of the first to the scene, right? And that
Mhm.
way you make sure that the beekeeper is actually available, right? So the beekeeper who claims it is able to respond right now, sees the address, sees the phone number, is able to arrange to pick that up. And so
Mhm.
that way it's easier for the homeowner, right? It's a little less hassle of getting contacted by a bunch of people all at once. And the
Mhm.
beekeeper isn't competing for a swarm and maybe arriving at a swarm that's already been picked up.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And I have to say ahead of time, I really like that feature because a lot of people are hesitant to report that they have a
Yeah.
swarm, and they don't want their information out there. Also, the
Yeah.
beekeepers don't want their phone numbers out there. So when people post
Exactly.
on social media, call me, and they put their full number out there or they give an address. Now, it is important that somebody reporting a swarm, and we'll start with that group, uh, that you have access to the property, legal access to the property. It's not just walking
Yeah.
through the park or down the street and you see a swarm in somebody's yard in a tree. We need to establish ownership of the property. They technically, temporarily own the swarm because they're on their way somewhere else.
Yeah.
So is that in your screening process, property ownership?
Yeah, exactly. So when you report a swarm, there's a little checkbox. Are you the property owner or not?
Okay.
Since I've responded to swarms on the street in park strips here myself, and of course I was just at one the other week that a biker was biking past and he spotted them, which I thought was a pretty keen eye that he saw the bees up in a tree. And of course there it's important to know that he's not the property owner, right? So I know to knock on the door when I come by there. So you see that on the dashboard before you claim the swarm. You can see whether this is the point person, or otherwise you're able to contact them, or to find someone else, right, who maybe is the responsible person there once you arrive
Mhm.
at the scene.
Mhm. Now, let me ask, did you look up, you must have, before you developed your own website, you must have looked at other websites that provide a similar service. Did you find that there was something inefficient about the current process and websites that are available to keepers and swarm spotters?
Yeah, so there's been different attempts at building this sort of thing. Um, And there's actually a system in Australia that works in a very similar way to mine. And so I was actually emboldened to see that this is already working relatively well in Australia. And so I was happy that the core idea that I started with was something that's already being done somewhere else successfully, and that I could improve upon. In the US mostly, there's a couple different sources where you can find contact information for a beekeeper, but there's nothing like this system that notifies you based on location. And so everything else is sort of a version of the traditional swarm call list, where either you're getting an email with contact information for, say, a dozen beekeepers to call, or you're going to a website and you're seeing a list of hundreds of counties, or right, you pick your state, you pick your county, and then you see the beekeepers in that area, or you go to your local association and you see a list of beekeepers. And so what inevitably happens for the public is that you're going to end up dialing your way through a list, right? You're going to call the number, nobody
Mhm.
picks up. You're going to call the
Mhm.
number, it's disconnected. If someone picks up, you're answering the same questions every time, right? The beekeeper always wants to know how high up is it? How long has it been there? Can you send me a picture? Right? So the questions are always roughly the same. And as a homeowner, as a member of the public, then it's quite inconvenient to dial your way through the list, answering all these questions until you
Mhm.
find someone.
Mhm.
And so the
And
idea was to streamline that.
yeah, and that long wait, hoping somebody responds, because often the way it's set up in my Beekeepers
Yeah,
Association, we have a call list. So we have a
yeah,
phone tree, and you have to get a hold of the first person at the top of the phone tree, and they have to respond, and then they have to reach out. Usually it's a message or an email or a Google Groups,
yeah,
and then we go through that whole process. So I do like it. This is very streamlined. I'm going to tell you ahead of time that we're going to be probably replacing that with a link to your website.
I appreciate it.
So, because that actually takes a lot of legwork away from us. And when swarms are happening in a lot of places at once. So it kind of it's an
Yeah.
ebb and you know recession there, ebb
Well, and
and
so one of the
tide.
things that I'm really excited about and that I'm happy to talk more about later is that my website can be embedded into a association's website really, really easily. So you don't have to be, I'm not a technical person, first and foremost. I've been teaching myself this as I go to build this. And so this is something that every webmaster in an association can do is I send you a little link and you put that into your website, and then my swarm reporting form appears directly in your website. And so people don't actually have to leave the association, right? They just fill out the form right there, and it kicks it into the system and starts things going. And so I've been working with associations to get that set up.
That's great. So if anyone wants to see how that's going to work, you can go to thewaytobe.org by the time this posts, and I'm going to have it embedded on my site too, only because I want to be the first one.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. So yeah, that's another great thing. So it's embedded like a widget, and then it
Yeah.
takes you straight to your site. So how are you going to earn money from this, if at all? I mean, if people aren't paying to join, if swarm
Mhm.
collectors aren't paying a fee for a swarm that they accept, finder's fee or whatever it is, how are you going to generate revenue from this, or are you just doing it?
Yeah, that's a question I get from beekeepers a lot. I think they're also concerned about their privacy, right? Is their data being sold or something like that?
Hmm.
Um, it's important to me that I only collect the data that I need, right? It's just the beekeeper's email, phone number, and for the address that they put in, right? They can put in any old address they want. So a lot of beekeepers will just put in their town rather than their home address, and
Okay,
that way you're not giving up any data. The site doesn't track you or anything like that. And so the way I make money off this, not that that's really my goal. My goal is to create really a useful service. I'm always building something,
hmm,
and a lot of my projects have been beekeeping related, and that's what I really enjoy about the hobby is all the kind of side projects that I've gotten into over the years. And so, my goal is never to make money, but of course there are expenses, right? To pay for the website, sending
sure.
texts costs money, and so there are these expenses. To a certain degree, my time isn't free either. Right? If I contribute, I like to put a lot of time into this, but as this gets bigger and bigger, it becomes a little harder to manage. Um, but the way I pay for the cost of running this website is that I have a small online store where I sell a beekeeping logbook that I designed a couple years ago, and I sell that wholesale to beekeeping stores, and people buy it for themselves. And so I sell a beekeeping logbook on Amazon that I use myself in my apiary, just a checklist and kind of some handy measures that you'd want to have, right?
What's this? What's the
Just use my
size of your
calendar.
logbook?
Sorry,
What's the physical dimensions of the
I have one
logbook?
right here. I was just inspecting my bees yesterday. This is the version for California beekeepers. There's a general version and there's a version for California beekeepers. So it's nice and portable. Um, and I carry it with me on inspections and fill it out. The idea is that it can serve as a kind of to-do list or a checklist. And so the sales from that help me pay for the service. And then for the public more, I have a small Etsy store that sells some beekeeping t-shirts with some different designs on them, and that pretty much covers the cost of running the website.
Who designed your shirts?
Those are done some by me, some by friends over the years. Who when I decided to start selling them, paid for the designs to be able to sell them.
Hmm. And so, what is your day job?
Yeah, so I graduated from my undergraduate a year ago, and so spent the last 6-ish months working for a beekeeping startup in Europe. And they were doing, they're still building this, hive scales and in-hive sensors for beekeepers to use. And so they have some scales that go underneath and weigh your beehive, and a little sensor that goes inside and measures things like temperature, humidity. And so I was the customer success manager there, going to a lot of beekeeping conferences, meeting hundreds of beekeepers, presenting the product. And that got me thinking too about building my own beekeeping service. And they were doing a lot of work with how can data be used to improve beekeepers' lives, and how can beekeeping be done more efficiently, and how can it be done more sustainably. And now, right now, I work on a couple different freelance projects now that
Mhm.
I'm back home in California.
So you're not talking about Broodminder, it's another company?
No, but I've been talking to Lorenzo from Broodminder.
Okay, because it sounds like an overlap of that.
Yeah, they do similar things, and I really like Broodminder's sort of citizen science approach. And so we've
Mhm.
talked as well.
Mhm. Now, you said you've been to conferences. Were you at the North American Honeybee Expo?
No, but I enjoyed your video about it. I was still in Europe when you released that, and so a month or so before that, I was at the EuroBee conference in Germany, where we were launching these hive scales to the German market. And so I had a great time talking to hundreds of beekeepers and getting their feedback, and meeting beekeepers from all around Europe and seeing some interesting products there as well.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Will you be at the North American Honeybee Expo in January of 2025?
I'd like to be. Haven't made any plans yet, but I would like to be, yeah.
Okay. All right. So all the stuff that's worth sharing happens there.
Hmm.
But so are you fluent in German?
Yeah, and I lived there for a year. So I studied abroad in Germany for a year during my undergraduate, and was actually just listening to Dr. Seeley's Honeybee Democracy, and found out that some groundbreaking honeybee research was done in Munich, where I lived for a
Yep.
year. And
Yep.
so that was a nice reminder of that very nice time there.
What do they call raccoons in Germany?
Ooh, a Waschbär? Yeah,
Yes, a wash bear.
Waschbär.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The bear that washes its hands.
yeah.
I'm glad that you knew
I'm
that
glad that I
because
knew that. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty funny too because Tom Seeley had a raccoon as a pet. So I don't know if you knew
Really?
that.
Okay, funny.
But yeah, he spent a lot of time there. So that's really
Okay, I
interesting.
didn't know that. Yeah,
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. I
sure.
have found a swarm. You are able to share the screen. So if you would also please explain it in detail for those who are just listening rather than watching.
Sounds
And
good.
so somebody gets to your website, we'll say the name of the website again.
Yeah, so the website is swarmed. I'll share the screen here so you can see what I'm doing. The URL is beswarmed.org. And you'll find the website, and there's a big yellow button to report a swarm. And so the idea is to, right, a lot of people when they come across a swarm, this is sort of maybe a scary or at least surprising experience. And so I wanted to create a website that was friendly and approachable and could kind of help diffuse that situation and make sure that people knew what to do. So that report a swarm button is nice and big there in the middle. And then there's some information about how the service works, that you report a swarm, a beekeeper will connect with you, they'll take care of those bees for you. And then there's information for beekeepers, right? So there's sort of two sides to the website, that the stuff for beekeepers and the stuff for the public. And so there's a guide to identifying a swarm. And so that way, I've actually had really good success with, at this point, one person reporting bumblebees. But the entire time that the service has been running, have had no problems with wasps or anything getting reported, because that is something that I keep in mind, right? It's a problem if people are reporting wasps or bumblebees or anything like that. But one gentleman reported a bumblebee hive. But if you click on report a swarm, takes you to the quick and easy form that the public fills out, put in your name, your email, your phone number, and then select from a drop down, you select the size. I went with easy metrics here, right, that people can gauge kind of by eye. So you're asked, is the swarm tennis ball size, football size, basketball, beach ball or larger, or unknown? When people report removals, they generally do unknown.
Mhm.
How high up is the swarm? And then we have how long has it been there, right? That can be really crucial. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that I show, if you, for example, select a week or over a week, you see a little text that tells you that, well, this actually might not be a swarm. This is actually an established colony, right? Since for the public, a lot of times it's hard to differentiate between a swarm and an established colony that would be a cutout. And so I choose to kind of on the front end of the website refer to swarms very broadly, and then let the beekeeper distinguish what's a swarm and what's not. But so I kind of cue people up that this may actually, if it's been here for a month, it may actually be a colony. You type in your address, where the swarm is, and then you'll see it, you'll see a little dot here. You can put in any extra information. So people will put in special information about what times they're reachable, whether there's an access code, things like that, and then upload an image. And then you can get that information to the beekeeper. You submit the report, and then, like I said, many times between 15 and 30 minutes later, I see on my end that a beekeeper has claimed it and has reached out to the person. So this is working very, very quickly, and that's really the goal here. The service is working as fast as possible, since who knows how long that swarm will be there. And of course, you want to catch them while they're in an easy to catch spot and not when they've moved into someone's house.
And
Let's see,
then
taking you through the
so
rest of the website. Yeah.
go ahead. What were you about to say?
Yeah, taking through the rest of the website, there's an identification guide, with information on what to see, right? What you're looking at, a swarm, of bees, or is it maybe wasps? And so those are sort of some of the things that I have on the public facing side to queue people up. And then this is for specifically for associations. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see community outreach. And this will take you to a handy page about what the service looks like for associations. And so how that integration works. For example, right, the form can be put directly into an association's website. And so I've been working with some associations who want a sort of custom solution. They want to have their logo on the top of the form. And so they use my form in their website with just a little note at the bottom says, this association does swarm reporting powered by Swarmed. And so a little bit of information about that, what the dashboard looks like. We can look at that as well. And then a little bit of information too about how to spread the word. Because, right, I'm a one-man team. I put a lot of work into getting the website out there, reaching out to cities, reaching out to beekeeping businesses, trying to go everywhere where the public might hear about it, getting the website ranked on Google. And so that's been a real focus for me recently. But there's also all the information's here for people to support the service. And so people donate, people use the shop and buy beekeeping logbooks and t-shirts there. That really helps me out, right? That helps me pay for the cost of running this. And there's a small media kit too with some Instagram posts and social media posts and flyers that could be physically put up in the world to spread the word. And so the idea there is to kind of enlist the beekeepers who use the service and enlist the public, because so many people are enthusiastic about honeybees, to help spread the word and get this out there.
Well, this is a very interesting opportunity to record analytics too, as far as size, location, height off the ground, time of
Yeah.
year. You'll be able to identify a lot of trends through the years. Are you going to connect with groups like the Bee Informed Partnership or to help share your data as time goes by?
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about that because I'm currently getting certified as a California Master Beekeeper, and I'm looking forward to working with the California Master Beekeepers to spread the word about the service. And from what I understand, the Bee Informed Partnership is merging with them right now. And so the folks from the Bee Informed Partnership, I believe, some of them are moving over to California Master Beekeepers. And so it seems like there's going to be some cooperation there. But one of the things that I'm excited to show off too is I don't know if you can see the dashboard that I pulled up here. But this is essentially to share some of the data with associations. And so when an association uses my form in their website, they're able to, and the way I have this set up right now is still quite flexible, but the idea is if an association is willing to pay a small fee, they can use their logo on my form and they'll get the data from it, since this is taking me quite a lot of time and work to build this. But this is a draft of what it'll eventually look like. But that as an association, if you use my form on your website, you'll see the data from the swarms reported through that form. And so your members sign up with a code, and that way associations can also guarantee that only their members are being notified of a swarm, right? So a lot of associations I talk to are worried that if they use my service and maybe a beekeeper who isn't a member of the association responds to a swarm reported on their website, that their reputation will suffer, right? And that maybe the public will have a bad experience and that their reputation will be on the line for that. And so this way, associations who use a branded version of my form on their website are then able to just have those forms go to their members. And then they're also getting the data from it. So things like, when are reports happening? When are they starting in the spring, right? Are they starting earlier in the year? How many are you seeing? Average temperature. So I'm actually able to see what the temperature at the time and day the swarm was reported was. And so recording what temperature swarms are being reported at, what the weather was like. Is the sky clear, cloudy, things like that. I want to show associations as well the coverage. So how good is your coverage? Is your area, or you see kind of overlapping circles of where the beekeepers' radii are? And so is your area covered? Are there swarms happening that you're not getting a beekeeper for? What's your average response time? Yeah, your percentage of claimed swarm reports, right? So you're, as an association, you're hoping to have pretty high percent of those reports being claimed. And of course, claiming them quickly, since that's how the service works the best for you and for the public. And we're working too, this is a little bit of a just fun aside, is estimating the number of bees saved. Of course, there's always a rough estimate, and I've been doing the math here on a very, very conservative undercount. But the idea being going off the kind of half a cup is around 300 bees.
Mhm.
extrapolating that to if the swarm is the size of a tennis ball, the football, right? Extrapolating that up to how many bees might have been in that swarm. But of course, that's very difficult, and something I'm still trying to improve on, and making sure that the estimate errs on the very conservative side. But that's some of the data that I'm working with associations now to provide. So I'm gotten a lot of feedback on this from associations, and I'm building this dashboard now, and should have this ready in the next week or two.
Now, do you have, as part of your reporting scale, defensive level of the swarm that's encountered?
Not at the moment, because right now all of that information is being inputted by the person reporting them, right? And the person reporting them is probably not the best person to gauge the defensiveness of the bees.
Right.
But based on the feedback from associations, the next big thing that I'm adding is the potential for the beekeeper to input their own information.
Mhm.
So for the beekeeper, when they claim the swarm, to add some notes, right? So the beekeeper can then say, well, the swarm was defensive, or that they're able to go back and edit the size, right? So what does happen, and right now I still kind of look, right? So when a swarm is reported and the person says it's beach ball sized, I'll go look at the picture that they posted and say, well, is that actually a beach ball sized swarm? Just so that I can get an idea as well of how well are people estimating
Mhm.
the size of the bee swarm, since we're depending on the public to do that.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm working on a way to make that sort of information editable by the beekeeper so that once they claim the swarm, they're able to go and kind of correct some of the information and add some of their own notes and pass those on to the association. So
Mhm.
that's in the works.
So you mentioned you're a one-man show. So is this an automated system? When somebody logs in and reports a swarm, does it automatically link them to a potential swarm collector?
Yeah, exactly. So the way it works for beekeepers, so if we go back to the original website here, if we click on for beekeepers, there's some information about the service, some of the frequently asked questions that I get. How will data be used? How is the system funded? Where does it work? Things like that. And then the beekeeper signs up and inputs a radius. And so this is really crucial. We skip the rest of the sign up form here for a minute. Um, if I put in an address here, let's pick Seashell Avenue in New Jersey, I can then adjust the radius. So I can select miles and I can say, well, I'd be willing to go 5 mile radius around my house for swarms. So the default, but I see people who do up to 20, 30 miles, right? And you'll see this kind of big radius forming. And that gives you an idea of where you're going to be notified of swarms. And so based off this information that the beekeeper puts in, the system automatically finds a beekeeper for you. So when you report a swarm, right, you say the swarm is at this address, and then the system looks for beekeepers who overlap with that address. So if my radius is overlapping with that address, I get a notification. And so you get a quick text, click on the link, and then you see it on your dashboard.
That's interesting. So I would anticipate right now
Mhm.
in the month of May, guys are probably willing to drive 20 or 30 miles. And then when it gets to August and September, you'll see that little radius shrink to about 5 miles. They're not ready because it's
Yeah,
late in the year. They're spoiled. They have all the swarms they need.
true.
They might walk across the street to get one, but I'm not driving to the next town.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can adjust this at any time,
You
right?
can adjust it, and of course, when you get notified, you always have the option just to turn it down, right, or to
Okay.
not respond. And so you see the notification, you see how far away it is, right? You don't see the exact address,
Hmm.
and that prevents multiple beekeepers from showing up, like we talked about.
Hmm.
Um, but you see how far away it is, right? So you can say, oh, okay, that's 3 miles away. I'll make the trip. Or I've been seeing swarms here recently that are too far for me. But here in California, I have a pretty good network, and so someone else usually beats me to it anyways. And so that's part of what offers a great service to the public too, is that with enough beekeepers signed up in areas, there's some pretty hot competition to catch the swarm, right, to claim the swarm. And so beekeepers, especially in Los Angeles, where there's quite a few beekeepers signed up, I've been seeing swarms go really fast, and you notice the beekeepers learn, right, that they need to be quick, right? So when they get a notification, they need to respond quickly, otherwise someone else is going to snatch it up. And that provides a really great service to the public too, because they're hearing from a beekeeper quickly, right? That beekeeper's not ignoring the notification
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it may not be around for a long time.
Yeah, no, I like the way it says. It says here, are you a licensed insured professional beekeeper?
Yeah.
So that might be something people want to know. Do I have to be insured to go on somebody's property and collect a swarm of bees once, even though they invite me to come?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a complicated question. This varies from state to state. And so that's not something that I can really govern. But I ask people whether they're a licensed insured beekeeper because one of the things in my mind, probably for next season, is thinking about how can I improve the service for beekeeping professionals who make their living this way, right? I approach this from the hobbyist perspective of someone who catches swarms to replenish my beehives every spring. But what does this look like, especially for a professional who does cutouts? And so I'm really focused for next year on improving the service for them. And so for now, I ask so I can figure out how many of my users, and there are quite a few people now signed up who are licensed professionals. And then down the road, want to make sure that there's a better way to connect them to cutouts where they're the best person to be doing that, right? There'll be some people using the service who need a person who's insured and a professional to do a cutout or removal. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that it is on the beekeeper, right? There's only so much I can do to make sure that they're in compliance with state and local laws. I was speaking to someone, I think, from Georgia. They have some pretty restrictive laws about catching swarms. And so it's definitely on the beekeeper to make sure that they're in compliance with local ordinances, state laws, since that varies quite a bit from state to state.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And though this is not, to be clear, this is not legal advice, but I understand that the situation has changed if the beekeeper collecting a swarm is charging a fee. If you're in there as a volunteer, you're just collecting the bees, that's one thing. If you show up and you say, yeah, I'll collect the bees and it's $20, now you just entered a different liability potential zone. Another interesting thing, I don't know if you knew this, but in the state of Florida, is it required that when they collect a swarm that they requeen the swarm?
Yeah, and that's something I've been hearing too from beekeepers in Southern California, because where I come from, right, I learned beekeeping in Oregon, and beekeep here in California. The Africanized bees are not an issue, but in some of the southern states, right, where they have warmer weather, they're seeing more Africanized bees, and so catching a swarm and rehoming a swarm is also expensive, right? You're paying for a queen potentially to requeen that swarm, and so I've been trying to adapt the service. Like I said, I'm a one-man team, and so I haven't been able to prepare some of those legal resources for people. But down the road, would like to have a page about kind of state-to-state ordinances to give people an idea of what they're walking into. But right now, it's on the beekeeper to know their local codes.
Yeah. Or probably better than listing the ordinance, just links to those states and the governing bodies that then, because then if that gets updated, you're not
True.
putting out old information. That's really good. So I like what's going on so far. Now, let's say we're the beekeeper, we're responding to a swarm. This is our first couple of years as a beekeeper. What should be in our go kit?
Yeah. So I always carry a cardboard nuke box with me. They're nice and portable. I enjoy that. I usually keep a couple frames of brood or of drawn out honeycomb with me. That the scent tends to attract the bees. I usually have some lemongrass oil with me to coax them down, but usually a nuke box works just fine. I actually just ordered a new gadget that I'm very, very excited to try out. Off of AliExpress, I ordered one of those nets that closes, and attached it to one of those extension poles for painters. And so I'm very excited to give that a try next time I get a swarm that's a little bit higher up, because it's essentially a bag with a string, and you pull the string and the bag snaps shut.
Yep.
And I ordered that after catching a swarm that was a bit higher up in a tree than the person had told me, and had to catch it in their pool net. So they had a pool and had one of those long extension poles lying around.
You know what this
so I caught
is?
that net and brought them down.
You know
And
what
I've
that
seen the
is?
swarm reacher. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I played with this yesterday.
Mhm.
And here's what was funny. I also took some Swarm Commander, a capsule of this.
Yeah.
Huge mistake.
Okay.
I took the swarm, they look like this.
Yeah, I have some too. Yeah.
All right. So I took that, I put a frame on it. The frame did not have a lot, it was half drawn with comb. So I was just half playing with it because it was an easy swarm to deal with. And I honestly didn't care if they stayed or went.
Yeah.
But I smeared a little Swarm Commander on there. Not only did I get the swarm off the branch onto my pole, the clamp, and the frame, bees from all around were flying and collecting
Wow.
onto it.
Yeah.
So I built up a good, so let's see, let's use your scale, probably a basketball size swarm of bees, which are, I kept them overnight. Now I'm trying to get them just to volunteer to go into another box. That was interesting, and I didn't have to use the clamp method. So you're right, the lemongrass oil, or since you have the swarm commanders, have you tested that at all on something to attract them off of a high location like that?
I've tried that. I've tried that with I've had a swarm the other week in an apartment complex that was very, very high up. pretty unreachable without a cherry picker. I gave that a try, but so far no luck. I
So
honestly
what
haven't
was the
had
mechanism you used?
there. I set up a nuke box with some code drawn comb inside, and some Swarm Commander capsules, or a Swarm Commander capsule in there.
And did you get it up to where they were, or you just were trying to get them to come down to it?
I got it as high as possible. They were pretty high up, so I was able to. A neighbor offered their balcony to put it up there, um, to try to get as close as possible, but haven't had much luck there.
So I think it's actually easier to get them onto an open surface if you've got an old brood comb or something than
Yeah.
it is to get them into an enclosure.
Okay.
And then once they're on the frame and you've got it covered in the bees, then you can just put that frame
Interesting.
into your box.
Yeah.
And that's why you already mentioned you bring multiple drawn frames of comb. And so then you take another one, same treatment, send it up, collect more bees until hopefully one of them is the queen that gets on it.
Yeah. I
Um,
haven't tried the Swarm Reacher yet, but I saw it. I think actually in your
yeah,
video about the Bee Expo. Um,
yeah.
and thought about getting one, or now came across my extension pole with a big bag on the end.
Or
That
even, if you don't have a swarm reacher, I don't want to talk the guy out of business, but they make those really small C clamps
yeah.
that you could really cinch that really tight on the end of your
Hmm.
painter's pole, and then you just tighten that down on whatever kind of frame you have. Again, I'm not trying to take his idea and sell something else, but we all have tiny C clamps around.
Yeah.
The same mechanism works. So I think this is much more lightweight, and it's great that the guy has this innovation.
Yeah.
But that's a fun way also to get things. Let's not derail completely off of the task at hand, which is we're on extra credit now because we've covered the basics. What else should be in their kit?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I bring my bee brush. I'll usually have a smoker with me just in case, but the bees tend to be so relaxed that you don't end up needing it. Of course, for a removal or a trap out, it's a whole different arena. And I've been going in that direction more, and learning some of the skills there. Um, but I think that's a pretty different arena.
So now
Uh,
you mentioned trap out, which is different from a cutout or a
yeah,
removal. Trap outs are a real game of patience.
yeah.
Have you had any success with that?
I've got one trap out to my name so far. A friend from high school had a beehive in his tree, and we set up a trap out, and that successfully got them out. But over the last couple years, I haven't been home long enough to really see one through all the way.
Mhm.
And so I think a really interesting one to try.
So
And
did you
actually,
make really long escape cones or what did you do?
yeah, I basically screwed a hive entrance into the tree, and then yeah, and then got that in there.
Okay. Did you try to use any repellent scents or anything to push them out? Some
I
people drill another hole in the back or something and
yeah.
they insert a scent that drives them out.
Yeah, and this was such a thick tree. I lost a drill bit, a pretty long drill bit in the had an impact drill, and lost it. It broke off in the tree, so I had to buy a new one there. And so ended up actually using a plastic tube and pumping smoke down into the cavity. So it kind of fed. It was a pretty big cavity. I was able to feed the tube through the small opening, and then pump some smoke in there so come from the bottom up. But didn't want to give them too much smoke either.
Right. That's interesting. So you don't know what the long-term success of that was.
That one, no. So that one was successful. So this was
Oh, it
a
did. So
couple years
you
ago.
you emptied a bee tree.
Yes, after maybe a month and a half or so. Took quite a
Holy
while.
cow. That is a
I
game of patience.
we gave up. It's we basically gave up, but I said, well, I'll just leave it there. They had had the bees there for many years, and were eventually trying to get them removed so they could rent the property. And so we had some time, but this took quite a while.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how many of the bees really, how much of the colony moved in. We had the queen, but the colony ended up being quite small. I don't know if they were small to begin with though,
Mhm.
but picked up quite a few bee stings setting that up. But that was an interesting challenge.
Let me ask you about another algorithm that might be showing up. Do you
Yeah,
find more swarm reporting following storm fronts? So after the storm has come through and then we
interesting.
have warm weather afterwards, after the storm comes the swarm, if it's warm.
Yeah, I actually just set up the data collection for weather data, so that's automatically right based on the location of the swarm. My system automatically measures the temperature and the weather conditions, and I just set that up last week. So the service right launched last January, so it's still quite new. I sprinted through the winter to build this and teach myself all the tech skills I needed to build it, and so it's now just I was in a rush to get kind of the basic version out there, and now I'm focused on improving it with the feedback that I've been getting, right? I think a lot of people are excited about the idea. I get a lot of emails from people saying, I was thinking of just something like this, or I've always thought there should be something like this, but here are my 2 cents, right? Here's what I was thinking. And so I get a lot of great ideas that way. And I always like it when people reach out. My email for people is Mateo, Mateo, at bswarmed.com. And people send me their ideas, and more often than not, I add it to my to-do list to build it into the service. So constantly working to improve it and get more features out there.
Mhm. Now, are you a web developer?
No, I studied history, so this is not my
Okay.
background. But I like to build things. I've always got a couple projects in my backyard. Uh, they tend to always be beekeeping related projects in the end.
Hmm.
And so I've worked on a couple different projects over the years. And so this is the latest one, and needed some new skills for that. But that was very, very interesting, and a good experience to sit down and teach myself web development
Hmm.
and build this website.
So how did you come up with the graphics that are here on the Swarmed page?
Yeah, my sister actually was kind enough to draw those for me.
Your sister
And so I
did.
wanted something that
Okay.
was sort of friendly and approachable. And so my sister drew me some kind of woodcut style art for that.
Is she a graphic artist or a fine artist?
She's studying sort of mix of psychology and design right now. So she's still doing her bachelor's. So she was kind enough to draw me these sort of shapes and some flowers. Um, yeah, so I'm super happy with those.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Psychology and design.
Yeah.
That I'm sure she knows of a website since we have them, colormatters.com. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have? Oh man, can't give you anything new. All right, because that's really interesting for those who wonder why I even brought that up. It ties psychology with your reaction to color, and it's not all the same for everyone. Women look at something a certain way, men look at something a certain way. And I notice these are very neutral tones. These are almost tertiary colors that are being used.
Yeah.
And I like it. It's very well
Thank you.
done. So, and pass that on, of course.
Will do.
Don't take all the credit. Okay.
I can't, I absolutely can't.
Okay. So is there anything else we need to cover that's on your mind here?
Yeah, I'd love to show what the dashboard looks like for beekeepers, because just
Yeah.
this week released the newer version of it. There was a first version that was based on kind of my skills at the time, what I could build, and it worked and was good enough to start with. But pretty quickly was realizing that there needs to be some improvements here, and so I'd love to show the new and improved dashboard. Uh, that's what that looks like on computer. But one of the key things that I looked at for this dashboard was how do I make this work better on cell phones? Because I'm seeing now from the data that 60-70% of the beekeepers are, of course, they're getting a text on their phone, and then they're on the go, they're clicking the link and it opens up on their phone. And so I've been asked too why I didn't go the website or the app route with this. And so part of the reason was I didn't have the technical skills to build an app. That's actually a whole different beast, especially building one that works on iPhones is very, very difficult and expensive. And so I ended up building this website that works really, really well on your phone. And so this new dashboard is meant to work well. The picture is now bigger, so you can see the bees better. These are a couple sample swarms just in my testing um, dashboard. But you can see here, right, when a swarm is reported, you see the picture, how far away it is, the size, how long it's been there, and then you can choose to claim it. Here's what a swarm looks like once you've claimed it. You see some of the comments that the person left, right? If they left a note, they're not the property owner. Looks like this one's at the parking lot. The phone number, the name of the person, and then the address. And you can click that. It opens in Google Maps, takes you right there. I do have a button here to see whether the swarm has been captured. And this is for associations down the line if they want to be making sure that their members actually picked up the swarm, who's claiming the most swarms, who's capturing the most. It's not mandatory to fill that out, but wanted to have that included. And then,
And
of course, there's always the option to
just to be
unclaim swarm.
clear, just to
Mhm.
be clear, the information we're looking at here would only be shown to the individual responding to the swarm location.
Exactly, right? So,
This wouldn't be on a wall that everybody can see.
no, right? So everyone
Okay.
sees this, right?
Right.
Everyone sees just this basic information, a picture,
Okay.
and this basic information. And then if you hit claim swarm here, you'll see the swarm is now claimed. It's your responsibility. A lot of what I try to do is kind of set expectations right for both the homeowners or for the public and for the beekeeper. so that there's as little miscommunication as possible. And of course, keeping that flexibility, right? Like that as soon as the swarm is claimed, the beekeeper's in charge, right? They are now in charge of the situation, and you can see now this swarm that we claimed. Now we can see the phone number. Actually, there's a test swarm, so I didn't have a phone number here, but some of the information about the person. It's in a park. They're not the property owner. Where I need to go. All right, and here you can see who I need to call, for example. Here you can see the number I need to call. And so that tells you what to do. And of course, there's always the option. I try to discourage this, since of course that's not ideal for the system. But you can always unclaim a swarm if something comes up, right, and you're not able to deal with it. You unclaim it, and then it gets kicked back to other beekeepers who can then claim it. But only one person at a time is able to hold the swarm, right? And that way, you're creating as easy of an experience for the public and for the beekeeper.
Is that everything?
Yeah, that's what I want to share with the dashboard.
Okay.
Yeah, you're able to go into settings. There's some feedback. I always like to hear from people. And one of the other things that I'm excited to, I guess, last thing is that you can filter for available swarms, or by the date, so that you always see unclaimed swarms at the very top. So this was technically quite difficult to set up, and I'm very proud to have that out there. Are all the filters too. So you can filter by status, right, looking for an unclaimed swarm, a claimed swarm, or claimed by yourself. Since the idea is that this works like a Facebook feed, right? You'll see all the swarms here. So when someone else actually claims a swarm, I'll show you that too. Let's see. This one here, right, has been claimed by someone else. So the button is grayed out. You just see the first name of the beekeeper who claimed it. And so here I can't get it right. So maybe I got a notification. I clicked, I went to my dashboard, but the beekeeper, someone else beat me to it. Greg has already claimed this. So I'll still see this in my dashboard, but I can filter to just see the ones that are, for example, claimed by me or that are unclaimed. And you can filter by size and situation as well. So there's all those different options. Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Best one I've seen. Okay. So I hope that those that are listening and watching will get that link, share it on their social media or their club social media, or reach out through the email that Matteo offered up here. Also, I found the email that worked was info@beeswarm.org.
Yeah, both of those should work, but info goes to the same account and you'll hear from me either way.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last words? Anything?
Yeah, I think anyone who's interested by the idea, I'm always happy to chat, either by phone or over email. Right, I'm trying to grow this into as useful and as sustainable as a service as possible, whether for individual beekeepers or for associations, and down the road also for those beekeeping professionals. And so something that I'm really passionate about, and I love building things for beekeepers and all the challenges that come along with that, and building something that really, really works. And so I always love to connect with people, and look forward to hearing from some of your viewers and listeners.
That's great. And of course, I want to thank the membership of the Northwest Pennsylvania Beekeepers Association who brought this to my attention. And I think it's great, and I think it's going to take off. We're going to do our part. And of
Thank you.
course,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
as soon as I get off, I'm going to be registering because I want to respond to swarms.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Matteo. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, best of luck.
And that wraps up another interview here at The Way to Bee. I think it's great to have a resource where swarms can be reported and beekeepers can receive the information in time to take action. I'm Frederick Dunn, and thank you for being here.
Because this is recorded, so we can bloop anything out. So you have to say, the skunk jumped the stump, jump, skunk, jump.
The skunk jumps, the stump jump, the skunk jumps.
Oh, man. Okay, say this. Toy boat, toy boat, toy boat, toy boat, toy boat, toy boat, toy boat.
Toy boat, toy boat, toy boat. Wow, that's a tough one.
Oh, man, I'm glad we're doing this. Now say this. I slid the sheet I slid upon, slid sheet I sit.
I slid the fitted sheet on the...
You failed. We can't talk. Okay. So